Homestead. My name is Nikki. So this week we've been pretty much focusing on gardening. Like, we really haven't done much else, with the animals except for our Norm. But our main focus has been getting our gardens in and doing some really fun garden projects. One of the fun projects that we actually did this week was building this bucket stand that's behind me. And this is kind of an experimental deal for us because where we live here in southern Utah, it gets so unbearably hot during the summertime, especially July. I've seen it get 120 something degrees. And so we are trying to expand on our gardening to see what we can grow even during the hotter times by having things like this that we can grow in the shade, like 100% shade. So this is kind of, like I said, this is our experimental deal. I will be showing y'all how we built this. This design is not ours. It was a design we had found offline, and I will link the video that we got it from as well as the cut list for it. But it actually was really easy to build. Like, it didn't really take that long, like a couple hours from start to finish, and then probably a couple hours to deal with getting the soil ready, filling the buckets, and planting. So you literally could do this in a day's time. Another fun deal that we have done is started setting up a little area for my son to have his little mini garden. And a few exciting things that we finally have in the garden too. Alright, before I show y'all how we put this together and everything that goes with it, I want to take y'all on a tour of our garden. It's not really kicking off yet, but it's slowly getting there, and I just want to update y'all probably every month to show y'all how we're doing with it, what we're putting in, and even some of why we chose particular things. So as it stands, here is our garden at the moment. It's not very big, but we definitely are working on it. So garden bed 1 currently just has seeds planted in it, and I will pop up a picture here soon showing exactly what we have in it. So besides what we have in the buckets over there, bed 2 is the only one that really has anything planted, and the thing we have put in so far has just been tomatoes and a little sage plant. So we like to plant heirloom tomatoes. And one of the varieties that we found this year at the nursery was an orange flesh purple smudge heirloom. So it's going to be interesting to actually see what this one looks like. If I can, I will actually pull up a picture and share it with y'all to see what this one's actually going to look like. So one of the other varieties that we decided to go with is a Matt's Wild Cherry. And these are supposed to be little bitty tiny tomatoes. And we got a couple of those. We also decided to plant a Cherokee Purple and then a couple of Roma tomatoes. And honestly, I would prefer to plant a whole bunch of Roma tomatoes just because I like to do a lot of canning. But we are limited on space this year. Hopefully, as time goes on, we will be adding more and more beds in. So these 2 beds here, we still need to finish filling with stuff and get them ready to go. Because of us living in a drier area, we are going to have to focus on definitely water. And one of the ways that we are going to be doing that this year is definitely with soaker hoses. I've had really good luck in the past with soaker hoses, and so this is where we're putting our focus a lot too, is definitely making sure that we have plenty of water for our plants. So the little area that I had brought up about giving for my son is this little spot right here. We have these tubes, which they're pretty thick tubes, as you can see, and they're pretty tall. We'll be putting something in there, we haven't quite decided what. And then he's just going to have these containers. Gonna have all these little containers here, and this will be making him his own little garden space. So remember that peach tree that I talked about in another video? I have to show y'all something about this. You see that? Let's see if I can get it focused in for y'all. Right there. See if I can maybe find another one that I could focus on a little better here. It's so hard to get these things to focus, but we have little bitty peaches coming in right here. Right there, see? A little bitty peach coming in. So it's so exciting. We're actually going to have peaches. Fresh, homegrown peaches. So out of everything that's in the garden, I think my most thing that I'm really excited about is the fact that we have raspberry plants finally. And not just because of the berries. Like, we use the leaves a lot around here. Red raspberry leaf is amazing, especially if you raise any kind of animals for breeding. So like for our goats and our rabbits and all, we will give this to them when they're pregnant, the leaves. And what it does is it builds the uterus up. It helps strengthen it. And it's really great too, like when they're pregnant, you know, during the latter part of their pregnancy, is that it helps build them up ready for delivery. And a lot of times it will help make deliveries faster. It nourishes not only the mom, but her milk as well for the babies. And it actually will help her recover faster. And so having these, you know, finally having these in the garden, that we have our own source, is going to be amazing. And it's going to help us so much better to be able to really take care of our animals. And plus having the raspberries is going to be awesome, so I can make lots of jellies and jams and even fermented sodas with them. So it's going to be really nice to have these finally going. And we are planning on more berries. We just have to get things set up for them and figure out exactly what ones that we want to go with. If I had my way, honestly, we would just have every berry that I possibly could get my hands on. So this is what our bucket stand looks like. This one holds 8 buckets. And as you can see, we actually have some of them already planted. So I've got some cabbage here, and then these 2 are kale. This one is a scarlet kale. It's actually an ornamental kale, but it is edible. And then this one is called a lacasino kale. It's really bumpy. It kind of has like a dinosaur texture to it, and that's actually, it's also called dinosaur kale, which is actually kind of cool. Now, I did plant some kale seeds in this one, as well as some bunching onions. These 2 are lettuces right here. I don't remember the variety because we have so many different kinds of varieties here. And then I put some carrots in here. I believe I put some red Coda carrots in. I'm not exactly sure on that one. I don't really remember. But yeah, this is our experimental garden, and we're going to see what we can grow and get done. We probably will build another one if this one really takes off really well. Alright, well, I will show you how we built this thing and everything that we did with it. Alright, so here I am just measuring everything out. We ended up having 7 boards that were 55 inches, 1 that was 52, 4 that was 31, 4 that was 25 and a half, and then 2 that was 19 inch. And the last 2 boards were 12 inches, and there was 2 of those. And it's definitely one of those things that you definitely want to measure twice and make sure before you cut. I will be listing below all the cut links that we had, so it's not something that y'all have to try to listen for and everything. Alright, now on to the cutting. I really love using my husband's Makita saw, and the best thing about it is the fact that there's no cords, and so that I can actually get things done a lot faster without finding a cord in the way. Now we're just kind of separating by lengths. You don't have to do this. This is just something I figured would be easier on us to actually have everything separated and make assembly a lot faster. Then all the links lined up there, your 55s, your 52s, your 31s, all ready to go. Just like the separating, I thought it'd be best if we kind of lay it out to figure out how we're actually supposed to put it together. And it did make a difference because we actually had more of a visual on how we needed to start piecing this together. Kind of doing a bucket check to see if we actually had the right height on these, and this is what they look like before we actually started assembling. This is another one of those steps that is not necessary, but it does help a lot, is that we decided to pre-drill everything. We started with the bottom here thinking that it would be best, but after actually putting this one together, we found that starting from the top was actually the best thing to do. We're just using 2.5-inch decking screws. Please excuse the fact that my son's finger is in the way here. As you can see, we are not using a square. We are just lining things up, making sure that it's flush. There on the bottom, in the video that we actually watched, the guy did not state how far up, and so we ended up going with 4 inches, and we just drew a line to kind of help us, you know, keep everything lined up and all. And this is what they look like. Once they put together, you want to make sure that you do opposites like that. And then we started pre-drilling and getting ready for the sides. This is actually one of the easier parts to do, is that we just lined up on the bottom and screwed it in, and then just worked our way kind of up the back and then around to the front. And once again, we are not using a square. We are just making sure things are flush and lined up with each other. And this is where having the extra help definitely does help tons, is that they can hold it and just sinking the screws in. Just like I said, we're just using 2.5-inch decking screws, putting 2 in each board. And the ones that we're putting on, like the back and the front, those are your 55 inchers there. This one roughly took us about 45 minutes to put together, and that was from cutting it to actually assembling. There is definitely some things that we will do differently on the next one than we did with this one. This middle one that we're putting on now, that is the 52-incher there. Now, you didn't really see what we were doing, but we slid those in where we had the bucket sitting. Those were kind of a bit of a challenge because we had to kind of take it at an angle to get the screws in. Doing another bucket check, making sure everything looks good, especially before we screwed in the bottom board there. You know, no way are we professionals on this, but I think it actually turned out really great. And there you go, a nice little bucket plant stand, and it's going to be interesting to see what we could do with this. Now on to some sanding, and we haven't really decided quite yet here if we were going to paint it or what we were actually going to put on it. You don't necessarily have to sand it. You know, this is a very optional deal. But it is going to be sitting outside, and with you planting in it, there is a chance of it getting water, and it could warp the boards, you know, eventually. So we just kind of decided to go the extra mile there and make sure we got it sanded really good before we decide to put something on it to protect it not only from the weather, but from the water when we were actually watering our plants. decided to linseed the wood instead of painting it. Linseed is definitely one of those non-toxic options that you can do, and it will protect the wood. You will just have to reapply, yearly, or depending on how wet your area gets. But it is definitely a really good non-toxic option that you can go with here. And in fact, we have actually linseed in most of our rabbit cages, and it has helped so much and hasn't caused any problems with the rabbits chewing on the wood. This whole project, from cutting to even linseeding it, probably took only a couple hours, and that was just to allow the linseed oil to actually dry in between coats. My husband did end up putting 2 coats on this just to ensure that it was well protected. For prepping the soil for our garden beds, we just screened out our fresh compost that we had. Then to that 1/3 of compost, we ended up adding 2 bags of topsoil, plus several amendments to it. And that just seems to be a good deal for works for us. Then we put some rocks in the bottom and then started shoveling it in the buckets. Definitely not a hard project to put together. You could probably do it in a day, maybe a couple days. That'd be a good Saturday project for you to do. It cost us roughly about $64, and that was mostly for the wood and the screws. Now, if you were to add the buckets in as well, you're going to look at probably about $100, but we actually had leftover buckets. For the soil combo that we use, because we use, like I said, topsoil and compost that we mix together, we also do amend it. So we will add the fertilizer. So we have found that combo actually works really well for us. We used it when we were out in Tennessee, and we even would mix just a little bit of potting soil in if we didn't have enough compost with it. But y'all can do whatever it is that y'all use, or if you just want to buy new soil and add to it, if you want to add like container soil, whatever it is that y'all have, you go ahead and use it. Like, you don't have to follow what we do on that. Well, that is our garden right now, kind of just in a nutshell of what we've got going on. More and more projects, we have a list of them. Well, definitely thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions about this project, definitely comment below, and I will do my best to help y'all. And if y'all build one, definitely let us see what they look like. It'd be kind of cool to see what y'all do with them. And I hope y'all have a good day, and thanks for watching. Bye.